our discussions also for people who might not be able to attend. And indeed, I'm happy to give you the floor, Sander, and to introduce us to CIVITAS neural network traffic management.
Okay, thank you. Should I take over the control?
Yeah, please take over the control.
Okay. So this is about a part of the Urban Innovative Actions projects we have, and it is called SASMOB. And we have a experimental sensor system developed in the city in cooperation with the University of Szeged. Just like many other camera-based sensors, it collects information about the traffic. It can collect the information in real time, and the sensors are located at one of the bottlenecks in the city's transport system at the central bridge across the river Tisza in Szeged. And what is probably unique in this system is that we don't want to collect personal information about the people who cross the bridge, neither camera image nor license plate number, and nor MAC address, because we also play with the Wi-Fi IDs, counting the passenger traffic. This is the image that you don't get, in fact, because here the cars and the pedestrians are tagged. This is when we teach the system to identify the different kinds of traffic, but from the sensor network, we only get numbers. Only the car, the cyclist and pedestrian numbers and public transport numbers are coming out of the system, and you get charts and detailed data like this. This is about a specific day at Szeged in September, and you will also get data like this. It is about car traffic, and you can see the morning peak and the afternoon peak in the city, and you can see that the peaks are in the different directions. If you take a look at, we will have, this chart is now not public yet, but a real-time version of this chart will be made available for the people, so they may take the decision to delay their trip, for example, 10 minutes, and they will get through the bridge faster. This is the car traffic on the bridge in the past weeks. I think you have seen charts like this before. And we also use a version of the sensors on public transportation, where, again, you won't get this kind of recognition at your desk, because in your computer, because the images are not transferred to the data collection center. Only the AI logic works within the camera, and added to the camera, we also detect the Wi-Fi signals, especially in the case of a congested vehicle. The estimate can be made better using the Wi-Fi signals, because we can detect how many Wi-Fi equipped telephones are on the vehicle, and therefore we can have a better estimate for the passenger number of a congested vehicle. This is the morning peak on the first chart, where you see trolleybus number 9 arriving to Széchenyi Square, which is the center of the city, and you can see how the passenger count drops at this vehicle, and an hour later you can see that the passenger numbers are relatively low. in the 20s, and you can compare the two charts. This is how the passenger numbers changed on the line as the vehicle went through the city. This whole system should fit into a bigger system because we have other data collection methods present in the city, and eventually all data should arrive to a smart city data center. Not just these as special sensors, but also we have application data collected in the SASMO project. We have traditional passenger counts every 3 years. We have household surveys. We also have occasional traditional passenger cars for a certain line if there is a need. We have other vehicle sensor data coming from the public transport vehicles. Those sensors were not developed to count the passengers, but they can give you an idea how the passenger count changed. And we also have weather and air pollution data collected. And the idea is to see the correlation between the weather and the passenger counts, the traffic and the air pollution. So that concludes my presentation. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sander, for taking time as Vice Mayor for Urban Development of the City of Szeged to be there this morning with us and for presenting this. Indeed, if you have questions, we will have time after the three presentations to respond to all of them, but I already invite you to think about your questions you might want to ask to Sander, to either keep it in mind or already type it in the chat box. I would now hand over to Juho Kostainen, Project Manager at the City of Helsinki, who will let us know a bit more about the ECCENTRIC Mob Lab. I'm not sure I pronounced it well, but
yes,
please
very
go
well.
ahead.
Thank you. So indeed, I'll be talking about ECCENTRIC Mobility Lab, which is Helsinki's test bed for smart mobility. So obviously, a lot of transport-related developments that are done in cities is related to infrastructure plans and things like that. But here we're focusing more on the new kind of mobility services, data, digitalization, and really combining the needs and plans of the city with the voices and the needs of the citizens, as well as taking in all the ideas coming from the different companies, bigger, smaller, researchers and so on, really trying to foster the innovation activities and providing the city itself as the test bed where things can be tested in practice. We've focused our activities especially on a new district that is growing rapidly. It also includes a very busy passenger harbor, meaning that there are some traffic issues. There are a lot of trucks and cars coming through there. The area being an island, it's a bit of a bottleneck. So there are some congestion challenges. Construction means that there are some roadworks, changing environment, things like that. So there are definite needs. So you can really demonstrate if things work in practice in more urban areas. So really the idea is that the city itself, the area, the road infrastructure is the test area where we help different companies implement their new experiments, new solutions, testing, demonstrating and developing them, whether it is services or technologies, sensors, things like that, directed at traffic planning. Basically, we're addressing themes from smoother, safer and more sustainable traffic. In practice, it means that new solutions are tested, installed, implemented in the real urban environments where the citizens themselves and people living in the area, passing through, can actually experience them if it's something tangible. And therefore we get better and more concrete feedback on what really works and what is the acceptability from the user point of view. And also at the same time, providing new kind of data as well as the lessons learned to build more and more solutions based on. Of course, not everything stays on the ground in the area. Over the summer, we had one on-demand electric boat trial, for instance, a little bit off this specific district, where we helped the companies actually get the pier in place, get the charging stations, and communicating to the users that there's a new trial, which also actually addressed the needs coming from the citizens themselves. So we have a participatory budgeting program in the city where the citizens can vote for their ideas of what kind of solutions would improve the environment. And one of the needs they brought up was the improvements of accessibility to the islands near the city of Helsinki. So we combine the needs of the citizens with the needs of the company to really demonstrate and test their new kind of solution. And of course, the collaboration with the citizens is central here. So we listen to their ideas and involve them as the actual test users for getting better feedback and making the process of testing new kind of solutions more familiar. And of course, as mentioned, the collaboration with the companies, the researchers is central. So we try to bring them together, whether it's startups or bigger organizations, and thereby networking different organizations, bringing knowledge about what kind of trials and experiments and results there are, and so on. As the underlying theme of these activities is that we try to build upon the different experiments and projects we have. So we have smaller test cases and we have long-term EU projects, for instance, as well as the natural operational development activities the city has. And in each of these, we try as much as possible to create new open data, open APIs, providing other developers to get an opportunity to find out what they can really come up with, creating new innovations, combining the different data sources, providing a better picture of what is going on, and coming up with things that we can't, basically. As an example, there are a lot of trials ongoing where different kind of traffic data sensors are used. So for instance, in the main junctions in the area, there are radars being installed, which also include an open API for interested developers to utilize. There's the quick introduction to what we're doing or how we're doing things in Helsinki. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Juho. That was very insightful indeed. Again, I see that we already have one question from Julia directed to Sandor. Really, don't hesitate to post your questions for Juho, for Sandor, and we will have really some time to discuss this after the three presentations. So now I'll invite Natasha Tomadaki, mobility planner at the municipality of Rethymno, to join us on our virtual stage in a way. And she will allow us to navigate in Rethymno's smart mobility system. So please let us know about this.
Hello, so I will be presenting today the smart mobility solutions implemented in the municipality of Rethymno. A quick introduction to Rethymno. Rethymno is a Greek city and is the third biggest city of Crete. The population is around 63,000. However, during the summer period, which is from April until October, there are more than 500,000 tourists in the city, adding a lot to the traffic. Therefore, from early stages, Rethymno set its vision to become a city model for sustainable development, not only a unique touristic destination. And in 2016, the municipality joined CIVITAS Destinations project as a partner, which is a Horizon 2020 project. And together with the Technical University of Crete, we are the only Greek partners. This project focuses on implementing sustainable and innovative mobility solutions at touristic destinations. And the measures that I will talk later are financed from the CIVITAS Destinations project. So the main challenges were identified with increasing traffic congestion, which becomes much worse during the summer months, lack of mobility data, unnecessary vehicle movements in the city because the drivers are trying to find on-street parking, and some illegal parking at the loading bays are causing delays at the freight distribution companies, and generally a chaos, let's say, in the city. So to tackle some of the issues mentioned above, 11 thermal cameras were installed covering the city's entrances and the major movements around the city. Those cameras record mobility data in real time and provide information about different vehicle categories, from small cars to LGV, AGV, and bikes. Their cameras are used to understand mobility patterns in the city and allow the monitoring and real-time human behavior when implementing measures. The thermal cameras were selected as solutions since this type of cameras are GDPR compliant. The cameras are connected to an online platform and present the data real-time in the platform. And the data mainly include traffic counts and also vehicle speeds. The latest analysis conducted from those data was the comparison of traffic between the two different lockdown periods. So in this graph on the right, we can see in blue the daily general traffic counts during March, and with orange the November's traffic counts. The first section of the graph shows the period before the lockdown, and the right section shows the Catholic lockdown period. It was therefore concluded that the traffic is twice as much in November lockdown and people are more relaxed. So, in parallel, 5 meteorological stations and some portable equipment for on-street counts operate in the city and are monitored from the Technical University of Crete, pointing out periods and locations with higher emissions and noise, allowing the comparison with the traffic data. The next system installed in Rethymno was the smart parking management system. This was to tackle all unnecessary movements in the city, trying to find parking spots. So this system makes the process easier for drivers and for policing any violations. There are 593 sensors that were installed to cover on-street parking at the whole restricted parking zone, 28 Bluetooth sensors which were installed at disabled parking spots, and 28 Bluetooth sensors again at loading bays. For the Bluetooth sensors, the supply chain companies and the disabled association have been provided with cards, and those cards are identified when being on top of a sensor as a legally parked vehicle. Let me move forward. Yeah. So this system is at the moment the biggest and most integrated approach to manage parking in Greece. The system operates with a smart city platform with a mobile app so that the users can see real-time the available parking spaces and can also navigate to those spaces. The payment method has been simplified and anyone can pay online, allowing for alternative payment methods as well. We refer to this system as being integrated, an integrated approach, and I would like to point out that there are VMS signs installed at all 7 parking lots of the city, showing the available spaces. we have 3 larger VMS signs installed at the 3 entrances to the city, which show real-time the availability of those parking spaces. They're all interconnected, so that the drivers can choose smart and real-time where to park. And on top of all the above, this parking management provides a screen used only by the police, highlighting violations with immediate warnings. Change? Okay, yeah. So the next step which will be implemented in Rethymno is a platform developed for freight transport coordination. This platform will be connected to the existing sensors at the loading bays and will allow supply chain companies to book a loading bay at certain time slots. This tool will coordinate the freight distribution and reduce current delays due to multiple companies needing to use the same loading bay at the same time. So that was from me. I'm waiting for your questions.
Thanks a lot. Very interesting again. And I see that we already have a couple of questions that came in. I really invite you to ask more questions. We have about half an hour to really take the time and make it as informal and shareable as possible. I would invite the participants to also unmute and show their faces so we know who we're talking to. And also, if you have typed in questions, I would also invite you to ask these questions yourself. So maybe we can start with Julia, who had a question for Sandor. Julia, would you like to explain your question?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I was just busy writing another question. So, Sandor, thanks for this presentation. I found it very interesting, and I actually couldn't process everything at once. So maybe I'm asking the same question again. But we are also working with thermal cameras at the moment, and we have several ones that are going to be installed. But we found that the software, like the dashboard that you produce and the way you can actually easily grab the data that you get is also key. And I don't know if you developed that with the University of Szeged, or if you have a different system that you're using. So that was my one question. And the other one was for the persons that you detect on public transport, if you had any data security discussions with the public, because that is also currently in some cases for us a challenge. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you for the question. The software is indeed a uniquely developed software by the University of Szeged. In the cameras, we also have an AI chip, which is a kind of an industry standard AI chip. And the basic idea is to have to take parts from the market, from the electronic markets, to put them together in this smart camera and develop a software that will be taught to recognize people, cars, pedestrians, buses, and vehicles at all. And since the logic, the AI logic, the software is within the camera, no sensitive information leaves the sensor. There is a networked version when we have several cameras at the bridge, and we the sensitive information is only traveling between the cameras. And since it is considered one device, several cameras are considered to be one device, therefore no sensitive information, no personal information leaves this set of cameras. So we will only get at the end that from one street on the other side of the bridge, how many cars will reach a specific street on this side of the river. So we will have several kind of origin destination information, but only we will only get the numbers from the sensor network, because the sensors itself contain the software that evaluates the images, and it will obviously reduce the network bandwidth that is required by these sensors, since we don't have to transfer the images to a data center or something like that. And that will explain the answer to the second question. We didn't have to, in fact, when we took the pictures you saw in the presentation, we had these warnings around that you are on camera, because then the camera images were recorded, and these recordings were tagged later by people. But when there is a day-to-day working of the camera system, there is no image transfers from the system to the data center. And since we got to the point that no image is transferred, we had a lot of discussions with lawyers. And they were GDPR lawyers who know all the details of how to treat personal information. And the conclusion was that since no personal information leaves the sensors, therefore we don't have to comply with the GDPR rules, in the sense that we have to consult the public and we have to warn them that they are on camera. In a technical sense, they are not on camera, they are being counted. Is it understandable?
Yes, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Maybe I would seize the opportunity to ask whether how this is handled in Rethymno in terms of indeed the compliance with the data regulations, and whether you have a similar system or whether you opted for another one.
Hello. So basically, this is the reason that we chose the thermal cameras, because they don't record image. It's only, the vehicle is only tracked and identified by its size, and there is no image or no plate registration recorded, and that's how we are proceeding. There is nothing else required for GDPR. Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot. And as we are speaking about citizens, maybe we can pick up the second question that would go to Juho, that you had, Julia, about the citizen involvement in voting for ideas.
Yeah, sure. Juho, I found also your approach very interesting. Since you are really putting the citizens in a place where they can actually also involve themselves and bring in their ideas and see how they are being tested or implemented. And my question was with regard to the approach. So did you actually already have a set of options that you were analyzing and then give them out to the citizens, or were you completely open to citizens so that they would bring in their ideas, or how did you organize that whole process?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I would say there are different approaches, different projects or activities being done, taking different angles to this. One of them is on a very broad level as a city's one key activity for really engaging the citizens, where it really is an open question that what would you like in your area to improve the functionality or livability or attractiveness of the city, which means that the ideas that come in range from, as I mentioned, the example of improving the accessibility of the neighboring islands, all the way to we want more trash cans in this area or more park benches here. So that's something that is done on a high level throughout the city. And here, what we do in the mobility lab is we try to pick up if there are ideas meeting the mobility needs, something where new mobility innovations would really address this. Another approach is, for example, we have one bigger air quality related project ongoing, which has defined more specifically that they are looking for citizen ideas related to air quality improvements. And that is something that has been targeted in a few districts in the city, asking what in relation to air quality would the people want or need. They have provided some suggestions of what kind of solutions they might be, where people can basically vote or suggest what they would like. And of course, within the specifically smart mobility field, we're collaborating with the citizens. We have basically an email list of some 150 to 200 people living in the small area who have indicated that they are interested in participating in different ideas. We occasionally ask them about their new ideas, do some surveys, workshops, and things like that to sort of narrow down while also listening to broader ideas.
Okay, thanks. So basically, you are asking, you're not involved, you're not having an app or something via which you can vote for options, but it's basically through an email list that and people who have previously declared that they're interested.
For the mobility lab activities, yes, but on the broader city level ideas from whoever lives here, there is a website where people can fill in their ideas, which are then processed and analyzed and basically ranked, and the city figures out whether they are feasible and whether to allocate some resources to it or not.
Thanks. Have you evaluated the profile of people who are bringing in ideas? Is it basically across the society, or is it people in a specific age group?
At least I haven't too specifically. I don't think anyone has done that too elaborately. I think it's probably the same as in any kind of studies where you try to involve people. There are some those who are the loudest and those who are the most curious about new things. Some of them are very old, some of them are younger. No clear answer there, sorry.
Thanks.
But did I understand correctly that to participate in this mobility lab, you need to be living actually on this specific neighborhood?
Not completely limited to that. It's the area where we are trying to mainly focus our smart mobility solutions. The one idea there is that the participation of the citizens is easier because they are already familiar that these are some new things, new devices, new services that are tested in short term. So we don't have to start the communication from zero, and their expectations aren't that the city will be providing this as a full-on service for the future. But yeah, we focus on a specific district, but of course figure out if there are better places to implement things all around Helsinki.
All right. And in terms of the companies, startups involved, are they mainly local ones or not necessarily? How does that relation work?
We have no limits in terms of that. Obviously, we want to get the Helsinki companies active, help boost their businesses, but also we want other companies to realize that Helsinki is a great place to develop and test their solutions. So we have had and still do have foreign companies as well testing here, obviously. So we are open for business, let's say.
All right. maybe in terms of how of financing and how all these different measures and projects are funded, I see a question from Paul. Would you like to explicit your question?
Yeah, hi. I'm Paul from Babel Smart Cities in Stuttgart, Germany. And yeah, it was just a general question if CIVITAS funds most of these projects, like all the way, or if there are other sources. I guess in Juho's case, there are some private partners. But yeah, I was just wondering about that.
To feature like some sort of contribution from the people there, just to make it interesting.
I see it is someone here. We hear background noise, so maybe I just asked that person to. It's you, Paul. Okay, sorry. Yeah, maybe for the, as far as I know, the only CIVITAS project we have, I mean, funded here is the one from Rethymno, but maybe the others can also let us know how those projects are funded or financed.
Hi, so I spoke about 3 different systems. For the thermal cameras, they have been solely funded by the Civitas Destinations project. And for the smart parking solution, because it is a very big solution and very cost worthy, it is 1/3 financed from the Civitas Destinations, and the rest of the money will be is financed from the municipality, is municipal funding. And the third system, which we are now developing, the platform for the freight coordination, is also financed from the Civitas Destinations project. And this is because they're all components to solve the mobility issues that we have in Rethymno.
Thank you. And maybe to go to Sandor.
Yes. The cameras that I was talking about were funded from the Urban Innovative Actions project. That is also an European Union funded project. It is called SASMOB, and it provides 80% funding for these projects. The 20% was provided by the city. You might have seen some reference on my last slide to other projects that produce data for the data center. So we also had Central Europe Interreg project where we developed some other kind of sensors that provide passenger information, and we also provided some local funding for data servers and things like that.
Thank you for that clarification. And maybe Juho, is it mainly through municipal funding that you run this MOB lab?
Well, the lab itself, as an enabling body, let's say, it's funded through an innovation fund of the city itself, so self-funded by the city, but the different projects, pilots, are from various sources, some local funding, some innovation agencies or research funds, and of course, quite a few European projects as well. So ranges from self-financed by the different companies that just need a place to really test their solution to some we fund through open calls, one of which will be opening in January, where we really try to focus on more specific needs and provide a little bit of funding for rather quick pilots, and then of course all the way to the collaboration in getting new projects.
All right. See, Paul is typing. All right, thank you. Is there any other question? I see there's still some question from Julia that we haven't tackled, but I'll see that
sorry, there's also Matthews who's lifting his hand.
Perfect. Thanks for letting me know. Matthews, please ask your question.
Hello, everyone. I'm Laszlo Macic from Debrecen. Unfortunately, I don't have the chat function. I have it in the main room, but not in this breakout room. So that's why I tried to raise my hand instead. The question that I would address to Shandor, all about data counting, basically. So what I was thinking about, the passenger counts on buses, I assume you cannot add up the two data sources, so the camera counts and the Wi-Fi MAC address counts, because you cannot tell if it's the same person whose address you see in the pocket. So you have to treat the two data sets separately. Is that right? And if so, which one provides higher values? Or if you could only choose to have one installed on the buses, which one would you go for?
My understanding is that the camera provides better counts. The Wi-Fi numbers are always lower because not all the people have Wi-Fi enabled phones and not all of them turn them on. So they are lower. What we see is that when you have you see that if there are 10 passengers on the bus counted by the camera, you will see, say, 5 Wi-Fi telephones. And then when the bus gets congested, then you see, I don't know, 80 people on the bus, and you see 50 Wi-Fis. Then you will see that there are probably more than 80 people on the bus, just the camera cannot see them because they are not visible for the camera. Yes, so you could see that these are estimates, not passenger counts in the sense as we count the passengers when we have students counting them manually. So these are estimates rounded to 5 or 10 passengers. And next slide. Anna, yes, you can see that there are these steps, not exact numbers. So it is a estimate. The idea behind the whole concept is that we will only have estimates all the time. What we have to be able is to know how correct this information is. And what we are interested in, for example, is the drop at Széchenyi Square, for example. You see that in the city center, at the end of the peak, there will be no more passengers boarding the vehicle, but only some kind of a standard 20-something passengers. Therefore, we know that this is really the end of the peak when we have this drop during the day, and we don't have to send another trolleybus or we don't need a denser service on that specific line after, I don't know, 8:20. So this is the basic idea. These are estimates, and the estimate is made better using the Wi-Fi data. The Wi-Fi data, if it doesn't leave the sensor network, would be also useful to see the changes between the vehicles.
That would have been my second question. Yes.
Yes. It is obvious. If you use it within the sensor network, according to our lawyers, we don't have to worry about the GDPR consequences.
And in this sense, the sensor network can be within multiple vehicles. It doesn't have to be within the same vehicle.
Yes, if it is a closed network, yes. This is the lawyer's opinion, and I respect.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And my other question was at the Tisa Bridge. Did you experience too dense traffic where the camera counts couldn't really count the actual traffic in the vicinity, but rather had to count the capacity of the road? So
no, not yet, but the cameras are in operation since March, and since March we don't have real traffic jams due to the pandemic.
Because I was thinking if let's say we would want to have a citywide coverage, would that actually mean that you would have to have such measuring done at all nearby congestion? Or
I don't think
at every intersection, or maybe you could skip one or two.
Yes,
and
probably.
just have one for every third.
You may have cameras at the most important roads or junctions, and then you will have an estimate for the rest of the city. It is probably not feasible to have cameras at every street.
Exactly. All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
At least not for traffic management purposes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for this very precise technical questions. We have 5 minutes left, so I would say I might give the opportunity for someone else from the audience to ask questions now. One question now. Otherwise, we would pick the one from Julia that is left. So please either do as Matthews and raise your hand. This time I will see it, or type in your question as you prefer, or directly unmute. And if that's so, I don't think there is any question coming up like that. So then I would go back to Julia's question. Julia, would you like to ask your final question to Natasha?
Yes, thanks. Natasha, I found your presentation also very interesting. And I've seen that you actually built up a dashboard for the police to see basically when there are violations happening. And now my question was, if you also have a sort of dashboard for the users, so basically for the delivery services to see where the zones are that are currently free and they can use it, and similarly, I guess, for the other people using the parking spaces that you have.
Hi, and sorry if you said the question twice. I had some connection issues. Basically, we have, yes, the view from the police, and we also have a mobile application and a platform that each user can use to see real-time information. And the real-time information can be provided for the general parking spaces, and also for disabled, and for the loading bays. So anytime we can see whether a loading bay is free or not. So the next step that we are conducting is a coordination system only for the freight companies, like a second application, let's say, which will show which will show time slots that a company can book, and another user who will want to use the same hours the parking bay, the loading bay, he will see that this time it is booked. I don't know if I covered you with my answer, Julia?
Thanks, that's very interesting. So you mean basically when the delivery companies are not using the loading bay, then people can park their private cars in those time slots?
Sorry. No, the parking spaces, the loading bays are only allowed for supply chain companies. So it is not used for general cars. They will get a fine else. So with this type of sensors we are installing in the loading bays, Bluetooth sensors we have installed, the supply company that will go and park the vehicle will have a card. This card will show to the police officer that there is a legally vehicle parked there, because it will identify the car. Else, if the vehicle parked on the loading bay, it will not have this type of card. The police will go and check, because he will realize that there is a car parked illegally on that bay.
Okay, thanks. Got it.
Thank you very much to all. I really want to thank both the speakers and the audience for all your interesting questions. We are really on time to switch. To give you the opportunity to switch room. So I will show now the slide, which will allow you, in case you want to change. So in case you want to rather get to know more about green mobility strategies with private companies or cycling as active mode, then I'll invite you to click either on the picture, the title of room 1 or room 2. For all the others who would like to hear more about active modes and vulnerable users with Madrid and Rethymno. So Natasha, please stay with us. I would invite them to stay here. And thanks a lot to Sandor and to Juho for your presentations. And I wish you a good next round of breakout sessions. I will now also post the links in the chat box, so in case you cannot click on the slide, you will also find the link to breakout room 1 and to breakout room 2 here. Francisco, I see that you already joined.
Yes, here I am. Hello.
Was it all good? So I see that breakout room 1A has already finished at the same time. That's good. We will have a bit of time to let people change, move rooms or stay as they prefer. I repeat, I will now change the PowerPoint we have here, but for those who still need to change room, I repost the links in the chat box. I would just ask for everyone that is joining and not presenting to unmute yourself at the beginning. You can unmute for the Q&A part, of course. So. Let me share our PowerPoint for this round B. I didn't see much more movement going on. So I would say that in a few seconds we could kick off this second round, round B, in room 3 on active modes and vulnerable users. We will start with Madrid, and I welcome Francisco Lopez Carmona, who will present us some measures that were implemented in the frame of the ECCENTRIC project. And as a second speaker, we have, for some of you, you already know her, Natasha Tomadaki from Rethymno, and she will let us know more about the measures implemented in terms of active modes and especially the work around schools in the frame of the production of their sump and in the frame of the destination project. So let us start. I'll just quickly unmute someone. And indeed, Francisco, I would say the floor is yours. You can take control of the presentation.
Okay. So here we are. Thank you very much, Charlotte, and thanks also to all the assistant attendants that have chosen this room. I'm going to talk a bit about our experience, Madrid's experience in the frame of the CIVITAS ECCENTRIC project, which has been developed for the last years, maybe 4 years. and coordinated by Madrid, but together with close cooperation with important European cities such as Munich, Stockholm, Turku, and Ruse. And one of the lines that we've been using for these work lines that we've been carrying on is the one related to active models and mobility management, particularly for vulnerable groups, including children and the elderly. A few words about Madrid, which many of you may know. The municipality has a population of more than 3.1 million inhabitants, among whom more than 1 million live in the city center. Therefore, more than 2 million live in other parts or neighborhoods of the city. Madrid has a big surface. You have the density there and a car ownership rate of more than 400 cars for 1,000 inhabitants. One of the things that is interesting about Madrid is that it is a Spanish city, of course, and therefore it takes part in the overall Spanish culture for walking. So the people walk a lot in the urban centers. As you come closer to the center of the city, the share of the walking transportation mode increases, and we have an emerging mobility culture based on biking, and particularly because of the relatively new, coming from 5 years ago, the public bike sharing system, which is an electric bike. We have based these actions on vulnerable groups and active modes upon general city strategies for mobility. So we have the Plan A for air quality and climate change. We have also the Madrid 360 strategic initiative for sustainable mobility and air quality. We have had the pedestrian mobility director plan. We have a bicycle mobility director plan, and several urban regeneration strategies that are taking into consideration very deeply the active modes of transport for the moment. As the ECCENTRIC project, the project is based on the idea of the balance between the center and the periphery of the city. So we have been working very deeply in peripheral areas, particularly in a big area of the city that we call Vallecas, a popular periphery with several hundred thousand inhabitants, and trying to make sure that the conditions for active mobility there become as good as they may be in the city center. And one of the things that we've done is trying to engage stakeholders and citizens by addressing as target groups vulnerable citizens. We have been working intergenerational, so the elderly and children interacting together in order to assess the problems of mobility that they may think they have. And we have got some results that we think they're good, such as an increasing 8.5% in walking mode trips for up to the 75% of senior travel. So three out of 4 senior trips are. We reach 3 out of 4 senior trips in these areas using active mobility modes. We have also promoted active mobility in schools with the European STARS method. We have granted accreditations to monitor school. We have funded these initiatives. They have constituted committees with parents, students, and teachers in every school, recognizing the champions as teachers that are actively promoting this kind of mobility. This has been also another of the working lines that we've been walking through. As the elders' mobility, as I said, we have used the methodology of the living lab. So we have selected this area of the city and working with the elders there to make sure that the solutions that were thought of and implemented were good enough as regards their point of view, not only our point of view as city planners or mobility experts. So we share a diagnosis with them. They needed better footpaths and they needed more benches, for example, to take a rest during the walk itinerary. And also they needed more safety perceived to make sure that they used more public transport. We did co-creation with them with funny viral videos and campaigns, etc. And we created also a permanent pedestrian club, Walk With Us, which has survived the COVID-19 crisis and get together some people to make a walk in the middle of the week. We have working also as to redesign the itineraries in this living lab in this part of the city to enable safer walking and cycling by improving the networks and the itinerary, the paths that they used to work. We have implemented new cycling infrastructure in Madrid city, even though we have still a lot to do in this area. In this context, I would like to say that the current municipal corporation has the project to implement safe and segregated cyclist line coming from the south to the north of the city, all through the Paseo del Prado and the Paseo de la Castellana, which are the main central axis of the city. We have performed some pilot actions in our living lab in Vallecas, like testing a new signaling system, providing a new campaign, a communication campaign based on the new Sustainable Mobility Ordinance that we passed in 2018, focusing on pedestrian, by the redesign of public space and the use of new information technology tools. And let's say that the results seem to us are very, very promising, and we look forward to project this experience to other parts of the city or to the general sustainable mobility procedures and initiatives in the city, such as the increment of walking, of the percentage of the modal share of walking that I was talking about before. The high acceptance of the users and the satisfaction of the inhabitants of the both stakeholders groups and the general population, whose opinion we polled with surveys about the measure that we were deploying. The decreasing of emissions, both concerning greenhouse gases and air pollutants that are affecting the health of the people. An important decrease as well in cycling accidentality. a better perception of safety for the aged people, and in general, this is from our point of view a very important result. The high engagement of stakeholders and residents in cities and the activities that we've been performing using this living lab methodology. So the conclusions are that we need to make sure that there's enough room for safe active modes. This is one. In order to promote safe active modes, you need to dedicate them one of the most scarce resources that we have in the cities, which is the public space. Rediscovery of the role of the city administration in order to regulate, to promote, and also to make sure that this space is available for these healthier transportation modes. The need and the results that yield permanent dialogue with all the involved stakeholders. People really want to participate, and this wish for participation is greater as you approach the measure to the areas where people live or work or make their lives in broader terms. The need to share a vision of the future. This shared vision of the future has to be built with this trust initiative and relationship with these stakeholders. The need to communicate and to make marketing, and on the side of the City Council, the need for information, transparency, open data, participation, and so on. And finally, the need to carefully analyze and evaluate results involving, for example, academia, university members, and sources that can make sure that all the data and the conclusions that you get from that data are really the ones that are the appropriate ones concerning the actual experience of the living lab. So I think that this was already there, and this is it. Thank you very much for your attention, and I am ready for any question or debate that we could have on this. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Francisco. Plenty of informations we have here. I will invite now Natasha to let us travel virtually to Rethymno, and of course, for all the questions you might have to Francisco and you will have to for Natasha, please either type them in or keep them in your mind, and we'll be able to discuss about this at 12:30. Natasha, the floor is yours.
Hello to everyone. So for those that are new in the room, let me introduce myself. I am Natasha Thamadaki, and I am here to present the road safety solutions implemented in the municipality of Rethymno. So a quick introduction. Rethymno is a Greek city and is the third biggest city of Crete. The population is around 63,000, and there is a high touristic fluctuation during the summer months, which generates lots of additional traffic. So from the early stages, Rethymno set its vision to become a city model for a sustainable development, not only for a touristic destination. And in 2016, Rethymno joined CIVITAS Destinations as a partner, together with the Technical University of Crete. This is a project financed from Horizon 2020. And focuses on implementing sustainable and innovative mobility solutions at touristic destinations. So within this project, the SUMP for the municipality of Rethymno has been developed. One of the main areas of focus during the SUMP development was to increase road safety, and especially around schools, since students are the vulnerable users. For that reason, 11 school regions were selected in Rethymno and the university to develop mobility plans. More specifically, the schools were selected to have different characteristics, and their locations are shown on the map, covering both the city center and the suburban areas. The reason that mobility plans were developed was to improve accessibility around schools, increase drivers' awareness with reduced speeds, enhance sustainable modes of commute, reduce accidents, and reduce congestion and pollution in the city center. The mobility plans for the schools and the university were developed in parallel with the SUMP, following the same procedures. So, as all of us might know, the stakeholder engagement is a key component at all stages. So the first step was to involve the heads of the primary and secondary education in Rethymno in a closed meeting to identify the best way and plan together. In parallel, the TUC, Technical University of Crete, organized workshops with teachers and students' parents about road safety. So moving forward with the mobility plans, we did the baseline data collection, identified the existing situation with the geometric characteristics, identified any accessibility difficulties, accidents were analyzed, and the essential element was to identify the user's needs. In that step, questionnaires were distributed to the students' parents of all schools where the mobility plans would be developed, and online questionnaires were conducted for the university staff. One of the main issues we normally face in Rethymno is the low participation of the key stakeholders. However, we managed to include them from the planning stages, and the participation was actually impressive. Therefore, the mobility plans were developed and presented to a consultation with all head teachers of the schools and the parents' associations, as well as representatives from the university. And possible adjustments that were discussed during the consultations were implemented in the mobility plans. That is actually the reason for the stakeholder engagement. So in this map, we can see the indicative solutions of the mobility plan for the third secondary and high school, which is in the city center. Those measures indicatively include raised intersections, realignment of the pedestrian crossings, new cycle lanes, horizontal and vertical signage. The mobility plans have been integrated into the wider SUMP, and therefore the measures are categorized to short-term and long-term ones. So in the second map, we can see the long-term design of the same school, which includes a bus lane at the main roads. To enhance safe commute to and from school, raising awareness and training activities were implemented in schools. The Municipality of Rethymno and the Technical University of Crete have achieved a holistic program with systematic actions. So from September 2017 until September 2020, experiential activities at all ages to students were implemented in schools to more than 6,500 students. Some of those activities were conducted from the Road Safety Institution Panos Mylonas, others from the Municipality of Rethymno, enhancing accessibility difficulties. The local police was also involved. And this year, as you can see in the top middle picture, all schools of the municipality had the opportunity to attend to activities organized by the local scooter association and the police. with a simulation of a traffic education park where students were using actually scooters. So it is a continuous effort to increase safety around schools. And the next step for Rethymno will be to install 5 smart pedestrian crossings, which are activated when a pedestrian is detected. Those will be installed at busy crossings around schools. And last but not least, Rethymno has achieved the RDF funding of 400,000 euro. And the implementation of the road safety interventions and mobility plans for the schools will start in the city. That's it from me.
Thanks a lot, Natasha, for this insight from Rethymno. We are well on time to have a discussion, so I would really invite you to either type in your questions, raise your hand, so we make it as lively as possible. I don't see any questions. To type in your question in the chat box or to raise your hand. I will then name you and then you can unmute. Maybe a question to Natasha then. Do you already have first results, or is the implementation still to be started, the actual implementation?
So the actual implementation of the mobility plans has been recently approved, so it hasn't started yet. It's only the raising awareness activities and the study that have started.
All right. And what is your timeline for first preliminary results?
Results from the implementation?
Exactly, in terms of improvements, as we could see already in Madrid, there was an improvement in safety perception, etc., etc. So what are you aiming for there?
So we're aiming actually to promote more students use walking and cycling into schools. That's why we have put lots of effort into raising awareness activities and training activities to safely commute. And yes, after the implementation, the new targets will be set.
Okay, thank you. I have a quick look at the chat. I still don't see questions, so please don't hesitate, don't be shy, and go ahead and ask your questions to our colleagues that are here this morning. If there's no question in the meantime, I still do have questions, but I would really invite you to seize that opportunity. My question would be, so to both Francisco and Natasha, what have been the main challenges, let's say, in implementing those measures and in working with this specific group of vulnerable users? What would you say has been, yeah, indeed, a challenge needed to overcome? And maybe could you let us know if you have one advice you would give to colleagues who would engage in similar kind of work and measures, what they should need to consider?
In our case, in the case of Madrid, the main challenge may have been the scope of the measures that we had to implement in such a large area of Madrid. We talk about a living lab, but in fact we are talking about a very large extension and heavily populated set of neighborhoods in Vallecas. And the scope, meaning that if you want to promote active modes, there are a lot of different things that you need to do. You need to think about public space, and that raises some kind of concerns and needs, because it's a very, very scarce resource. You need to think about, and first of all, about people, the people who are making the daily decisions in the moment of truth, that which kind of mode, transportation mode I'm going to use this morning to go to wherever I want to go. There are regulation issues, and the regulation issues are very tricky, meaning that there are many stakeholders. There's a heavy political debate and discussion on the kinds of regulation that we should implement, and so on. I would like also to say that what is not any kind of challenge or problem is the fact that people are really willing to participate, and the groups of elderly people and children we've been working with, the people in the schools that have participated in the STARS-like program and so on, were really interested in becoming a part of the solution of the daily problems that they can experience, or doubts on the use of active modes and so on. So people are really very keen to participate in this kind of initiatives, and that what we found. But the technical difficulties and the decision-making difficulties concerning the several areas or arenas of mobility policy that had to be taken into consideration were the most challenging issues in the project, from my point of view.
Thank you, Francisco. And on your side, Natasha, would you also say that indeed one of the main challenges consisted in maybe making this also internal cooperation work between different departments that had to sort of cooperate to put this kind of measure in place, or how did that work in Rethymno?
So this is always a challenge for Rethymno, to coordinate the different services, the different departments, and the different offices, let's say. However, the biggest challenge was to cooperate with the key stakeholders. That's why we actually engaged them from the very beginning, because we wanted to achieve the maximum, and we wanted to achieve the maximum participation so that we get the best results in terms of the mobility plans. And because it was an overall procedure along with the development of the SUMP, people would actually see that there is something serious coming up. So the participation was actually much more interesting. And I could also say that it is always in this type of processes, there is always a challenge with the political will. And it was very supportive this time, so it made the processes easier.
Okay. Good to know. My question may be to reach out to the audience that is there. Are there some people in the room representing cities where similar measures have been implemented in the frame of a Horizon project, or in order to include it also in your SUMP development, that might to share their experience on that regard? And maybe did you also face similar challenges as and also see this facility finally in the end to work with this specific group of people? Then please go ahead and share with us your experiences. if you want to intervene, just raise your hand or directly unmute. I think that is that would be then the easiest. Well, maybe I let the question sink. Maybe someone will be let's say at a later stage to respond to that question. So to go on in what regards vulnerable users, I had a question because as we saw in Madrid, we had indeed measures that were both concerning elderly people and also younger people, and here we also saw like connections maybe that there can exist between those persons, and I was wondering whether Rethymno was also thinking about similar things to implement, let's say to also consider elderly people in their upcoming measures, or
Yes, sorry. So we have actually implemented a few more stuff, but I thought we would mainly focus on schools. So we have at the traffic lights, as part of the CIVITAS destination project, we have put extra effort in enhancing the accessibility. So at the traffic lights, we have installed countdown timers, which allow elderly people or people with disabilities to know how much time they have to cross a traffic light. And we have also installed further equipment with blind people actually hearing the noise at the traffic lights and crossing. And other than that, we have also conducted some tourist and also local routes for disabled in the city, along with leaflets for the touristic routes, because we would actually would like all of everyone visits Rethymno to be able and access from the main touristic areas and anywhere, let's say, and know that they can reach there safely, and there is access for them. And finally, we have installed in along the coast accessibility, both ramps and system going inside the beach for the people with moving disabilities. So yes, they can be used both from elderly who have issues walking or from people with accessibility issues.
okay. That's indeed an interesting element you're adding here, is how to deal with vulnerable users that maybe don't live in the city but are maybe visiting the city. So maybe to come back to Francisco, how did you take this into account, or are you taking this into account, like more this aspect of tourists that might be more vulnerable?
Thank you. Not that much, because the focus of the project was on urban peripheries. One of the focus of ECCENTRIC project was on urban peripheries, and we don't have really that much tourists in the urban peripheries and in the Vallecas neighborhood, particularly, which was the selected living lab. But I wanted to comment. I was where you were asking before about the reactions on the other of the vulnerable users and the relationship between vulnerable users. I was thinking about how interesting what the experience that sharing the view of the use of a bus line. And talking about this, the elderly people and the children and young people, because the elderly people have a view that the children and young people make a big noise, and sometimes do not respect the use of the seats for the elderly people or for people who have some particular difference in problems in mobility. And the young people had and the children had the view that the elderly people behaved as if the bus was theirs. So they took whatever seat they wanted. They talked to the other people as maybe reprehending them for kind of behavior they didn't think appropriate, and so this dialogue, when it is methodologically made in a specific way, in a careful way, with full respect for everyone and full intention to understand each other's points of view, was very innovative and very an enrichment for the project and the view that we have. So people really make sure that this is a shared space. The bus is a shared space, and we all have to behave in a way that make everybody feels better, safer, more comfortable, and so on.
All right, and so my understanding is that you sort of put the seeds of this better understanding between those groups during the various activities that you actually did in the frame of this project. Will you have any follow-up actions or monitor this? I mean, how this sort of going along will evolve?
Yes, we keep in touch with the organized groups and some of the programs of the project remain. They have come to know each other, for example, by developing very funny videos of the use of buses with the participation of young people and elderly people and the point of view of each one. And we hope that this living lab, the idea of this living lab after the evaluation, is to extend this experience to other parts of the city that show the same kinds of problems, mostly peripheral areas, which have some difficulties for the use of active, specific difficulties for the use of active mode. So in short, the answer is yes.
Okay, so you basically are in the process of selecting and identifying other neighborhoods of a similar kind.
We will be. We are now closing the CIVITAS ECCENTRIC project. So after this, we will be identifying other parts of the city to act upon.
All right, and maybe one last question from my side, because I don't see any other question in the meantime coming up, even though I really invite you to do so. Let's say the movements of people that you're considering and sort of the active modes they will use, will this mainly be for shorter commutes, or did you also see how much of these more vulnerable people manage to maybe reach other parts of the city using those modes, sort of exiting also their very neighborhood, or did you mainly consider the commutes within this specific neighborhood? I think we lost Francisco. No, he's back.
No, here I am.
Okay.
Really, when we are talking, it is a decision that we are not really sure that was the appropriate one, because we selected two parts of the city that are very large neighborhoods. It is not a small neighborhood, so therefore we could focus on the commuting trips towards the center of the city or other let's say center or areas of the city. But these are really cities inside the city.
Yeah.
We assess the movements there's also a tendency in some of these groups, particularly the elderly group, to have movements that are more close into the neighborhoods, particularly considering the extension of these neighborhoods, the social center, or visiting some family in the vicinity, or so on. So our focus wasn't that much the commuting towards the center of the city, but let's say vicinity trips, and with that consideration of vicinity, that is quite a large one. It's not a small neighborhood, as I said, but a large part of the city.
Okay, I understand. Thanks a lot for all these clarifications and for letting us really have a good insight in the different measures and practices you put in place. I think that can really inspire other cities to consider those vulnerable users and to see how to integrate them more through active travel modes. I would say we wrap up here. We are on time, right on time, to go back into the plenary room for our final feedback session. I thank you very much, both Natasha and Francisco, for being here this morning. I know for some of you it is a holiday, so even more thank you for taking the time. And I will now show the slide, which will allow you to go back to the plenary room. It works as for the other movements. Just click on the slide, which will bring you back and fly you back to the plenary room. I will also include it here in the chat. Please join us there. Thanks a lot and see you in a second.